There's a type of person who hears "party this weekend" and immediately starts planning their excuse. Not because they're depressed, not because they have social anxiety, but because they would genuinely rather be alone. And for a long time, psychology assumed something must be wrong with that. If someone preferred solitude, the assumption was that they were withdrawn, antisocial, or struggling socially. But more recent research started asking a different question. What if some people simply prefer being alone? Not because they're afraid of people, not because they're damaged, but because solitude actually feels good to them. In 2016, researchers studying personality began distinguishing between something important: antisocial behavior and unsociability. Antisocial means hostility toward others. Avoidant behavior usually comes from fear. But unsociability is different. It's the calm, confident preference for spending time by yourself. And when psychologists studied people who scored high in unsociability, they found something surprising. They weren't struggling socially. In many cases, they were doing perfectly well. Often emotionally stable, often thoughtful, often highly self-aware. So what's happening in the brain of someone who genuinely enjoys solitude? Part of the answer involves stimulation. Some people simply reach their ideal level of stimulation faster than others. Extroverts often feel energized by busy environments. Conversation, movement, social interaction. Those experiences activate their brain's reward system. But people who enjoy solitude often reach that same level of stimulation much sooner. Their brains don't require as much external input to feel satisfied. Think of it like spice tolerance. Some people need an entire jalapeno to feel the heat. Others feel it from a single flake of chili. Neither is wrong. They're just wired differently. For people who prefer solitude, quiet environments can provide the exact level of stimulation their brain needs. Not too loud, not overwhelming, just enough. But something even more interesting happens during solitude. Brain regions associated with reflection and complex thinking become more active. The prefrontal cortex, which plays a major role in planning, creativity, and self-awareness, tends to engage deeply when external distractions are low. Which means people who enjoy being alone are often not doing nothing. Their minds are processing, thinking, exploring ideas, connecting experiences. This may be one reason why many creative breakthroughs occur during solitary moments. Not in crowded rooms, but during quiet walks, late nights, long stretches of uninterrupted thinking. History is full of examples of people who valued solitude for this reason. Albert Einstein often emphasized the importance of uninterrupted thinking. Virginia Woolf famously wrote about the need for personal creative space. Maya Angelou reportedly rented hotel rooms simply to have a quiet place to write. None of them were avoiding the world. They were creating space to think within it. But before we assume that loving solitude is always healthy, there's an important distinction psychologists make. Do you choose solitude? Or do you hide in it? Because those are not the same thing. Healthy solitude is chosen. It feels restorative. You return from it feeling clearer and more energized. Avoidant isolation often feels different. It's driven by fear of judgment, rejection, or emotional risk. One form of solitude brings energy. The other slowly drains it. Psychologist Abraham Maslow once described this difference in simple terms. Healthy solitude comes from abundance, not scarcity. You enjoy being alone because you know connection is available. You're not running away from people. You're simply spending time with yourself. People who thrive in solitude often discover something that challenges a common cultural narrative. That being alone does not mean being incomplete. Many societies emphasize the idea that happiness requires constant companionship. Phrases like "my other half" or "you complete me" reinforce the idea that individuals are somehow unfinished without another person. But people comfortable with solitude often see relationships differently, not as completion, but as connection between two already whole individuals. Research by Bella DePaulo has shown that many single individuals who embrace solitude maintain rich networks of friendships and family relationships. They simply distribute their social connections differently. Instead of relying heavily on one relationship, they maintain multiple forms of connection. This often leads to surprisingly strong social networks. Another interesting cultural example appears in Japan. There's a word that reflects the idea of enjoying time alone. Hitori. It describes spending time by yourself intentionally and comfortably. Solo dining, solo travel, even activities like karaoke alone are normalized. The idea is simple. Spending time with yourself isn't strange. It's part of maintaining balance. Contrast that with many Western cultures, where eating alone at a restaurant can still attract curious looks, as if solitude must always mean something is wrong. But the ability to be comfortable alone may actually be a sign of psychological stability. People who enjoy their own company are often less dependent on constant validation from others. They know how to regulate their emotions internally. They can reflect on their thoughts without distraction. And when they do spend time with others, they often arrive fully recharged, which improves the quality of their relationships. Solitude becomes a form of maintenance rather than withdrawal. Of course, balance still matters. Humans are social beings. Connection remains essential. But healthy solitude and healthy connection can exist together. They're not opposites. They're complementary. One provides reflection. The other provides shared experience. And when someone finds the right balance between the two, something interesting happens. They become comfortable both in conversation and in silence, comfortable in a crowded room and in a quiet one. So if you're someone who genuinely enjoys being alone, it may not mean anything is missing. It may simply mean your brain restores itself differently. You're not rejecting the world. You're just stepping away from it long enough to return with clarity. And sometimes, when people ask why you prefer solitude, the simplest answer may actually be the most honest one. Because you enjoy your own company. And that's not a weakness. It's self-awareness. And if that made something click for you, stay with this line of thinking. Because the more you understand how your mind actually recharges, the more intentional your life starts to become.